Hey there. Hey everybody, this is Brenton with Forza Tuning and Performance, and today we are going to talk a little bit specifically about a Dodge Hellcat Redeye. We got a lot of inquiries about, can you do a video on a Redeye? Can you tell us a little bit about it? So today we're going to cover what is a Dodge Hellcat Redeye, what does a Redeye cost, how much power does a Redeye have, how fast is a Redeye, tell us a little bit about a Hellcat versus a Redeye, tell us a little bit about a Demon versus a Redeye. So we're just going to go over a few things about this specific car. So what is a Dodge Hellcat Redeye? What it is basically, it is a Dodge Challenger Hellcat with the Demon drivetrain. So the name Redeye basically came from, they said that the Hellcat got possessed by the Demon. The Hellcat emblem has the red eye. It's a little bit of a playback. So the Hellcat came with an engine that was an orange engine block, orange valve covers, signature Hemi colors. And then when the Demon came out, the engine block was red, the valve covers were red, kind of significant red Demon. So what they did on the Redeye, it uses the entire Demon drivetrain, so the Demon engine, blower, transmission, the whole 9 yards. But the engine block is black and the valve covers are black. And on the Hellcat emblem on the fender, the eyeball of the Hellcat is red, kind of playback to the red accents on the Demon. So the Demon was a limited production vehicle introduced in 2018. It was a Challenger. It was a variant of the regular Hellcat. It was the first Challenger to debut in a wide body configuration. It looked very similar, but it was a drag specific vehicle, okay? So the Hellcat was a more all-around vehicle. Still kind of a like typical, atypical muscle car, straight line car, but it wasn't horrible on the track. There would be a lot of cars that would be better, lighter weight, so on and so forth. But the Demon was the tried and true drag specific vehicle. It featured a totally revised driveline, and we've already talked about it in previous videos, but different engine block, different cylinder heads. It had the same displacement engine, but just everything was stronger. It was, around 14.5 pounds of boost instead of the Hellcat that was around 11.6, something like that. The supercharger, the Hellcat had a 2.4 liter supercharger. The Demon had a 2.7 liter, which I believe is the largest displacement supercharger on any production vehicle today. Dodge made 3,300 units of this Demon. After they stopped making the Demon, they made it for one model year, 2018. They had all this technology developed. And so what they did, and honestly, I think it's a real smart move, they released the Redeye, and they took all the drivetrain components out of the Demon and put them in a Redeye. There was a couple different things, that they didn't, include. So the Demon had a very soft drag specific suspension. Not real good for daily driving. It wasn't a very good handling car. It was strictly set up for, straight mile, quarter mile. The Demon had a trans brake, which you would only really use at a drag strip. So they omitted those few different features, and everything else they carried over to the Redeye. The Demon was 808 horsepower, and it had a high octane button on race gas. It gave you the ability to do about 840 horsepower. The Demon had a very specific ram air hood. It was much, much bigger than the Hellcat hood. 2019, the regular Hellcat got a new hood, and it was the same hood that you see here on this Redeye. And they kind of refer to this as a twin snorkel, obviously, And the 2019 Hellcat had the same engine as the previous Hellcats, but where the other ones had 707 horsepower, now the horsepower went up to 717, and that is strictly because this hood design that they came out with. The Demon, because it was a quarter mile specific car, had a top speed of 168 miles an hour. Because in a quarter mile, the Demon's not going to exceed that, so it didn't need to go any faster than that. Its sole purpose was a quarter mile, and that hood that they had forced a large amount of air into the engine compartment. The problem with it was when, the Redeye, that's not set up specifically for a drag strip, has a top speed of 203 miles an hour. And that huge ram air hood actually caused a bunch of lift on the front end of the car, which they didn't want. So they had to come out with something else. So they came out with this twin snorkel hood, and they put it on the Redeye and the Hellcat. It didn't breathe quite as efficiently as the Demon hood, but it didn't have the lift problem that the big ram air scoop had on the Demon. Even though the Redeye has the same engine and everything as the Demon, it brought the horsepower down a little bit to like 797. So on the regular Hellcat that got this hood, it actually got a power increase of about 10 horsepower. So it went from 707 to 717, just because of this hood. So the Redeye, it came in two different configurations. It came in a regular body or a wide body that you see here. The wide body is the same as the Demon. In my opinion, a standard body Redeye is kind of useless. The main problem with these cars is trying to get enough traction. They have a tremendous amount of power, a lot of torque, so getting enough traction to get the power to the ground is always a problem. Okay, so we have the 2019 Hellcat wide body that is 717 horsepower, and we have the 2019 Hellcat Redeye with 797 horsepower. The Redeye only comes with an automatic transmission, so if you're a guy that, hey, I want a stick shift, I don't like automatic transmission, so on and so forth, you cannot get a manual transmission in a Hellcat. It's because it uses the Demon drivetrain, and of course the Demon never came with a manual transmission. So if you're a tried and true, I want a manual gearbox, then a Hellcat might be a better choice for you, because you can still get a Hellcat in a standard body or a wide body configuration. In all honesty, the power difference between the two, the wide body Hellcat and the wide body Redeye, even though there's about an 80 horsepower difference, the 0 to 60 time is actually the same in both those vehicles, which a lot of people find surprising. It's about 3.4 seconds, 0 to 60. The reason for that is the traction issues with the car. A regular Hellcat has probably the biggest issue putting the power to the ground, and when you add 80 more horsepower to it, you still have that same problem, if not a little bit worse. So the 0 to 60 times on the car are the exact same. Quarter mile times in the car between a wide body Hellcat and a wide body Redeye are very, very similar. The Redeye is 10.8 at 131 miles an hour. A wide body Hellcat is 10.9 at 127 miles an hour. And that's strictly because you can see, you know, if these cars were in a half-mile race or a 1 mile race, the extra power from the Redeye, you would see the car gradually pulling away. At that point, traction becomes less of an issue, and it's strictly the weight of the car, aerodynamics of the car, and the power of the car. So you can see from this comparison that the wide body Hellcat and the wide body Redeye are fairly close, even though the power difference. Can a Redeye be as fast as a Demon? And that's a logical question, because they do have the same exact drivetrain, and horsepower is just very, very minorly different. So I mean, you could put a Demon hood on a Redeye. The engine calibration is slightly different because the hood, the air intake is a little bit more restrictive in the Redeye. And the Demon has the stock 18-inch wheels with the stock drag radial tires, whereas the Redeye that you see here has 20-inch wheels. Another big difference between those two is the suspension between a Redeye and a Demon. Even if you took the wheels and tires off the Demon and put them on a Redeye, it has the same engine, same transmission, same everything, you would reduce the quarter mile time by about 0.3 of a second. So that's not much. You'd have it at about, instead of 10.8, it'd be about 10.5. And it would be at the same mile an hour. It'd still be at about 131 miles an hour, because you didn't really increase the power. You just utilized the wheels and the tires, which are lighter. The tires have a taller sidewall, so it'd have a little bit better launch. The Demon, however, has a quarter mile time of about 9.65 at over 140 miles an hour. A lot of people have a lot of questions about that, because that's a drastic difference. You know, we're talking about a Hellcat wide body versus a Redeye wide body. You know, you're hearing like 1/10 difference in 3 and 4 mile an hour, which is not a lot. Where the Demon, which is the same basic car, is, you know, drastically faster. The reason for that is what we talked about earlier in the video. The Demon is built from the ground up to be nothing more than a drag quarter mile car. The suspension is very, very loose. So what happens is it's very efficient at transferring the load of the vehicle onto the back tires. So traction, or getting enough traction, I should say, is much less of an issue on a Demon compared to a Redeye or a Hellcat. That being said, every car has their strengths and weaknesses. The Redeye is a much more well-rounded car. You know, going around corners, track, whatever it might be. It's not the best track car, it's never gonna be, but it's a much more well-rounded vehicle than the Demon is. Can a Redeye be made to be as fast as a Demon? Stock, no. Modified, that's a whole different subject. We've outfitted numerous Redeyes, even specifically with this one. So we've put like the Demon suspension on it. When he goes to the track, he uses a different wheel and tire setup, obviously, with that would be the same or better than the stock Demon setup. You can change hoods, you can do stuff, and obviously here we can do custom engine calibrations and stuff like that. So all in all, the Redeye is a perfectly suitable choice. Now, we get asked a lot of times, what does the Redeye weigh? What does the Hellcat weigh? People crack on it for being heavy. The car weighs about 4,500 pounds. The Demon was a little bit lighter. That's heavy for a sports car, but I mean, a lot of the cars nowadays, you know, like the Camaros, they're not that much lighter than that. With all the stuff that the manufacturers put on the car, all the safety features, the power seats and sunroof and all that stuff, it all adds up. The car is big, but honestly, if you've driven one, it doesn't drive like a super, you know, heavy car. Is it the best handling car on the road? Absolutely not. Is it like a big pig that can't handle it all? No, it's honestly really good for what it is. Price, what does a Redeye cost? You know, right now they start around low 70s. You can get a standard body or a wide body configuration. The wide body adds about $6,000 to it. And if you decked a Redeye completely out of the dealership, you would spend roughly about $91,000 on the car. Differences between the Hellcat and the Redeye. I mentioned earlier, it is basically the Redeye has the Demon drivetrain. So for any of y'all that aren't really for sure on what that is, the Demon and the Redeye share the same engine, same blower, transmission, the entire driveline. So, you know, as opposed to differences between the Demon and the Redeye is the Demon came stock with 18-inch wheels that were lighter weight with a factory drag radial tire. It wasn't the best drag radial, but it was the first production car to actually come with a drag radial made by Nitto. The Demon has a very soft drag-specific suspension. The Redeye has a suspension system set up almost identical to the Hellcat. So aside from the Demon being a quarter-mile specific drag car and the Redeye being basically like a higher variant of the Hellcat, there's not a whole lot of differences between the Demon and the Redeye to talk about. Between the Hellcat and the Redeye, they look very similar. If you put a wide body 2019 Hellcat next to a wide body 2019 Redeye, it's very hard to tell them apart, in all honesty. If you open the hood, you could see, like we talked about earlier, the Hellcat would have an orange engine block and orange valve covers. The Redeye would have a black engine block and black valve covers. Little bitty subtle differences. The Hellcat emblem on the fender on a Hellcat is like they always were since 2015. On a Redeye has a little bitty red eye in it. The superchargers, the Redeye has a 2.7 liter blower and the Hellcat has a 2.4. On the outside, they look identical. You can't hardly tell until you start taking it apart. The little bitty plaque on the top of a Redeye actually has a Hellcat with a little red eye in it. Other than that, you can't hardly really tell. It's very, very subtle differences. The engine, they both featured the 6.2 liter supercharged V8 Hemi engine. The Demon or Redeye version features the block is structurally stronger. It features in more webbing. It's more rigid. The oiling system's different. The oil piston squirters deliver, I think, 30% more fuel or whatever. The crankshaft is stronger. Connecting rods, pistons are all stronger. Camshaft is slightly different. Cylinder heads are very, very similar. They are just structurally stronger. They have less deflection under higher boost than the regular Hellcat. Again, blower, very, very similar. It looks identical. It's just bigger displacement. They extended the rotor pack. Torque converter's different. The differential is stronger in the Demon than the Redeye. The gears are made up of a different component. They're cut. So the Hellcat always came with a 262 rear end gear. Sounds low for all you got hot rod guys that are used to hearing 373, 410, 411s. It's because it has an 8-speed automatic transmission. The Demon came out with a 309 differential. It was very common for us before the Demon came out to upgrade the Hellcat to a 309 differential because we found out that it did much better at the track. On the Redeye, you can either get the differential, it's a Demon differential as far as strength, rigidity, the housing and everything, but you can get it in the 262 that the traditional Hellcat came in, or you can get it in the 309 gear that the Demon came in. So aside from the driveline differences, the Redeye Hellcat and the regular Hellcat are very similar. So just think of it as a Hellcat with a Demon driveline, and that's the easiest way to compare the two. Okay, so real quick, let's just talk about a little bit of performance numbers. And again, these are all stock vehicles. So we said earlier that the Demon does a quarter mile in 9.65 at 140 miles an hour. Granted, these are all manufactured claim times. Okay, so, you know, I don't want to get into, you know, Joe Bob over here ran this in his Demon and this and that, so, because we can talk about that all day. A Redeye wide body does a quarter mile of 10.8 and 131 miles an hour. The Demon would be the fastest in stock form. The Redeye Hellcat wide body would be the second fastest. The next fastest would be a Hellcat wide body. It's actually not the Redeye version. So the third fastest would be the Hellcat Widebody, which does it in 10.9 seconds at around 127 miles an hour. The third fastest would be the Redeye standard body. And like we talked about earlier, this is because of traction issues and tire size and so on and so forth. The standard body comes with a 275 rear tire, whereas the wide body comes with a 305 tire. So the standard body Redeye does a quarter mile of 11.1 at 131 miles an hour. Now before I go any further, again, I just said that the wide body Redeye does it in 10.8 at 131. And the standard body Redeye does it 11.1 at 131. Okay, that's because that they're still the same power. So the overall top speed in a quarter mile is the same. The faster time is because the additional traction and it gains ground earlier in the run. And finally, last but not least, is the standard body Hellcat, which is 11.2 at 125 miles an hour. The top speed on the Redeye is 203, whether it be the regular body or the wide body. The top speed on a Hellcat wide body is 199, and the top speed on a standard body Hellcat is 195. And the top speed on the Demon finally is 168. It's limited in the PCM. And again, it's a quarter mile specific car. You're not going to exceed 168 miles an hour at the end of a quarter mile. That kind of sums up basically what the Redeye is, what the Redeye is compared to a regular Hellcat, what it is compared to a Demon. So I hope this kind of clears some stuff up and answers some questions for you all. We get a lot of these questions all the time, so I'm just trying to put a bunch of answers out there to answer as many questions as I can in one video. Guys, we just set up a Patreon account. You can look, there's a link in the description. We specifically made this Patreon account for an avenue for us to give back to you all. You all have shown us incredible support, and it's honestly, it's very humbling. I can't really tell you how much we appreciate it. We put a lot of effort into the videos and everything and try to put some information out there that's just not out there. We're happy to do it. So again, we appreciate your support, and if there's anything that you all want to see, any suggestions, please give us some feedback. Again, like always, if you have any other questions or you want us to do a video on anything else, whether it be Hellcat, Demon, Trackhawk, or any other car, we have Ferrari, Lamborghini, anything else you might think of in here. I'm more than happy to do a video on whatever you want. So leave us something in the comments, and if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. And again, thank you for watching the video.